And pressure mounts on Malaysian Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin. The country's largest political party, UMNO, has given him 2 weeks to reconvene Parliament, saying failure to do so would be treason. Let's take a closer look at this story with Dr. Yassin. He is joining us from the Singapore Institute of International Affairs. Dr. Treason is a rather strong characterizations. Is this representative of the whole party, and can UMNO use it to force the Prime Minister's hand?
Well, indeed, it is a view of perhaps the mainstream of UMNO, namely that the government of the day, of which they are actually a part, should convene the parliament soonest. I think this was in the aftermath of the Malaysian king calling upon the government to do the same, namely to convene parliament as soon as possible. But of course, Malaysia is a constitutional monarchy, and the king has to act on the advice of the prime minister, even if there is now an emergency in Malaysia. Still, I think there are various constitutional arguments, but the most prevalent one is the king will still have to take the prime minister's advice as to whether and when to hold the next parliamentary session.
Well, if or when Parliament resumes, will Mr. Muhyiddin likely be taken to task then for his handling of the pandemic?
Well, I think that is why Mr. Muhyiddin is very much trying to delay the parliament sitting as much as possible, because while the parliament sitting may not be able to, for example, vote upon motions of no confidence against him and against his government, individual members of parliament will be able to officially raise queries in parliaments to which ministers and various ministries we have to provide official answers. So at the moment during the emergency, Mr. Muhyiddin can have a free hand as to how to run the country, how to tackle the pandemic and so on. But once Parliament opens, even though I think his government would not be threatened by the opening of Parliament, but he will be made more accountable to, for example, those MPs from the opposition.
Dr. O, are we seeing the prelude to what could be another leadership challenge?
I think the speculations are indeed very rife in Malaysia, because while the Malaysian kings, in a sense, edict to convene parliament and the other rulers' collective advice to not prolong the emergency, even though this simply advice under Malaysia's constitutional framework, nevertheless, they do have very persuasive powers because these rulers are held in reverence. And thereby, if Mr. Muhyiddin continues to stonewall this cause, I think at some point his leadership would also be called into question.
Well, Dr. O, the Prime Minister is said to be in favour of a hybrid parliament. What would that look like?
Well, a hybrid parliament, by definition, would have a physical sitting in the parliament with the requisite social distancing and so on. And on the other hand, there will be some members of parliament whom will be appearing, well, just like what we are doing now, online through various electronic means. Of course, Mr. Muhyiddin's government would argue that there would have to be changes to the Parliament's rules of proceedings and so on. But, well, these rules of proceedings could be changed or effectuated by a small groups or a committee on rules meeting and then going ahead and changing those rules.
All right, Dr. Yassin from the Singapore Institute of International Affairs. Thank you.